Kia ora whānau, welcome back to another episode with this series in a partnership with police. We are bringing you this awareness program. We are talking every time in a different topic, and we are having another guest with their expertise of their departments. So stay tuned and watch all the episodes with us. Great, welcome back, whānau. Really excited today. The topic, it's a little bit challenging for me as well. Would love to understand more. And I have a special guest here in the studio, Shane. How are you? And welcome to Voice of Aroha.
Good, thanks. Hi.
How are you doing?
Thank you for the invitation. Great.
Awesome. It's really thank you, Shane, for making time and joining us to talk about this topic, drugs and alcohol. So before I go deep into the topics, we'd love to find out who is Shane.
Okay. Shane's a police officer. Mm-hmm. He's been in the job about 30 odd years. So
cool.
Yeah, so I've seen a bit, all right, and certainly in relation to our topic of alcohol and drugs. So I've certainly seen my fair share of that. At the moment, I'm the manager of the Wellington District Police Alcohol Harm Prevention Group. Mm-hmm. Basically, that group, I suppose in a nutshell, is about increasing our community safety by reducing alcohol harm. So yeah, that's where we are at the moment with that topic. Drugs is a completely different sort of field.
Right.
Actually.
Okay. Welcome, and that's really just amazing how many years of service you have done. It's just a cool, and probably that's a wealth of experience. So Shane would love to, people who are listening and watching this podcast, would understand this topic when we talk about alcohol and drugs. So how we will, let's say, understand and define it of this problem, in your view?
Well, I think the first thing really is to separate between the two. First of all, you've got to understand alcohol is a drug. Right? It is actually a drug. But we do have them as two separate topics, don't we? And I think alcohol, because it's part of our history, it's an accepted product, it's an accepted consumable drink that everyone has access to. Whereas drugs, when you mention drugs, there's a separation between the legal drugs, which you get as part of medication and part of your medicine and that sort of thing. And then you've got your illegal drugs, which of course are the topics that usually comes to the forefront when you say, let's talk about drugs. And that's your meth, that's your cannabis and the such like. So they're two separate entities as such, right. But they are such a factor across a wide range of our issues and problems within our own communities that they affect. They're not in particular to any age or any demographic, any culture or anything like that. It's across the board. So everyone is affected, and I suppose the harm is to everyone and anyone. So that's our concerns with alcohol and drugs.
Yeah, okay, that's really good to know. Like, kind of like there are two different sections, but onto one kind of same harms or same kind of problems.
They morph together. There's alcohol is seen as a recreational type of drug, I suppose, one that's more accepted in day-to-day living. Whereas if I said to you, I'm just going to take some meth, you'd be eyebrows up and quite shocked. But if I said I'm just going to go and have a drink of beer or a shot of whiskey, you wouldn't probably think too much about it. But the harm, and it might not be quite so obvious, but both cause both health issues, problems, and of course excessive use causes a lot more harm to the wider community group.
Yeah, absolutely. So when does it become an issue? Especially like alcohol, is it?
Well, we talk about alcohol certainly becomes an issue when it's not, I suppose, consumed responsibly.
Okay.
I suppose that's the key word at the moment with alcohol is if alcohol is consumed responsibly, safely, well then they're probably, apart from the immediate health issues, like don't get me wrong, as soon as you take a drink of alcohol, there is a health issue to it, to the body. But it's not obvious, and of course, done in reason, it might be what be considered to be acceptable. Whereas taking an illicit drug, there's an immediate effect, and that's an immediate negative effect. And so both do impact on the person taking it, and the way they react and the way they respond to taking that drug or alcohol obviously becomes a problem when it becomes an issue both to themselves or to those near to them.
Right.
Or to the wider community. I'm just thinking then, for example, if you're driving a vehicle under the influence of drugs or alcohol, I mean, you're a danger to anyone on the road. So,
yeah, and on that, about you mentioned about driving and stuff. So, what would be the current laws in New Zealand? What is the acceptable limit of having a drink and drive? And do you recommend that? I know.
That's really difficult. There is no ability to be able to say to someone, look, if you just have one drink, you'll be fine to drive. Basically, the rule should be, if you're going to have a drink or take any illicit drug, you shouldn't be driving full stop.
Right.
But there is a legal limit, and that legal limit in regards to alcohol is 250 micrograms of alcohol per litre of bread, which sounds kind of complicated, but I can't transfer that into, so that's 3 cans of beer, because your body absorbs and alcohol goes through your system differently to if I had that amount of drink. So I can't tell you how much. I suppose it's one way of for example, is understanding both for your health benefits and for your I suppose wider concerns would be understanding what is a standard drink, because that's what your alcohol in particular is sold with that information available to you. And what I'm talking about there is, for example, the body on average processes 1 standard drink per hour. So it takes an hour for the body to process that 1 standard drink. That's not 1 can, that's not 1 bottle, that's not 1 shot glass. So when you look at your product that you're drinking from, it will tell you how many standard drinks are contained in that product. So if you've got yourself, say for example, a cruiser bottle, it might say, for example, 1.7 standard drinks. That means if you drink that entire bottle, you've consumed 1.7 standard drinks. That means you should be waiting nearly 2 hours before you know that's gone through your body and is now gone. But people don't do that. They'll drink 4 cruisers in an hour.
Right.
Well, those 4 cruisers means that's in the body system now for over 8 hours.
Yeah.
And that's why you can be affected by alcohol a lot longer after you've stopped drinking. And it's understanding that. So when you go out, for example, and you have a heavy night of drinking, you go home and you sleep, your body is still processing all that alcohol that you've been drinking. So when you get up in the morning and you decide to drive, you are still under the influence of alcohol, possibly. All right, so it's understanding that sort of thing.
Yep. No, I think that was clear and understandable on the amount of time to take. Clear from the body, but people get, choose some choices that can risk themselves first and the safety of others. In your experience, Shane, on this, you may have dealt to many scenarios, to many issues in your career. Have you had any example of some dangerous situations? There's many.
There's a lot, and basically you can read the paper, or now you don't read the paper, do you? That's showing my age. Let's go back to, you can open up your app on your phone and look at the local news, and you'll see many incidences where alcohol or drugs has been involved and the impact that it's had on a particular person or the extended family, the community. There are just so many examples. It's a shame that people don't understand that when they are taking these types of drugs, whether it be alcohol or illicit drugs and that sort of stuff, that it does affect them, and they might become a different person altogether. It definitely influences their own thinking process, their thought processes, their decision making, and as a result, they can actually become a different person altogether. And I think they need to realise that they don't control the product. The product will end up controlling them. So I think it's just important for people to understand that there are consequences to your decision making.
Right.
While you're sober or while you're clear-headed and clear thinking, you should be thinking of those possible consequences, those risks that are associated with it, and be making good choices or good decisions before going and whether it be exploring or whether it be taking that entertainment.
Yeah. So I will go back to the point of support, but I just want to talk about the consequences. So what would be the consequences currently if someone who consume in a level of addictions of the alcohol, if they commit some kind of behaviorals, damage their safety or the other safety, will there be consequences? And what about the drugs users?
Look, I think again, there have been some consequences. You've got the legal consequences. You might be fined, you might be arrested, you might spend the night in the cells, you might go to court, you might end up with a conviction that might stop you from travelling again, that might hinder your prospects of getting employment when you have to disclose those sorts of things. But more to the personal effect is you could change both your life or someone else's life, and not just in the short term. You only have to consider if someone drove and was in a serious crash, caused a fatality. I mean, the consequences from that, both for the person who decided to drink and drive, but to the extending victims' families, the extended whānau from that. I mean, it's widespread. So, the consequences are both criminally, but also personally, and with some people it affects them so badly that they themselves become a totally different person, depressed, and they go down a completely different road to what perhaps would have been a bright future.
Right. Absolutely. So, Shane, there is things in our communities, and you may be heard also. They say, okay, if this is bad for people, bad for damaging humans, and they can control once they start using it, they will be addicted. Why we are not stopping them from the roots? In terms,
it's hard. I mean, it's hard to cut out the product altogether. Both alcohol is readily available, and as I said, it's part of our society's behaviour. It's just given. So even trying to change that attitudes and culture is basically not going to happen. What we need to do is just educate, so that people understand, so that they're not tempted to explore and experiment. Peer pressure has a lot to do with our young people. Image has a lot to do with it. They see, I suppose, people in what you might call status positions. I won't say anyone in particular, but they see them and they think, oh, they do it. That's how I would look if I'm doing it, and that sort of thing. So that's a very hard, and it's an area that we continue to try and I suppose erode away further barriers from. But at the end of the day, we just can't stop people from doing what humans are humans, aren't they? So,
Yeah,
you know,
I see.
it's. I think it really comes down to trying to educate,
Right.
and make it more difficult, or as difficult as possible, to have access, or to try and slow that process down of having availability. So,
Right.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
a wide range, that one.
Yeah, and I think I like the way educating, because at least there's the information will be available for people to know the consequences, to also know about what is legal, what is not legal, to help their decisions on when they held any kind of big parties and stuff like that. And I mean, the fun is still can be there. Fun can be done in many ways, but not a way of kind of bringing this.
We come back to that, like if you're going to, if you are going to drink alcohol, just do it responsibly. You can still have fun. If you've got to have fun by getting yourself really smashed, then look at yourself and find out what you're missing, or what's the cause for you to need something like that. There must be something that it's trying to replace. So it's individuals just looking at themselves and going, well, why do I need to? Don't get me wrong, there are some people that unfortunately, beyond their means and beyond their control, become addicted for a number of resources. They see it as an escape, as a way of escaping from their problems, etc. And I suppose it's them realising that doesn't have to be the way they go. There are many resources, there are many organisations, there is many support groups out there, specific, and a lot of them have been personal knowledge of what they're going through, that they can talk to and get that support with. So
Right. No, that's absolutely crucial point. Shane, I want to jump into another questions, which is more about kind of support in when if people face these kind of scenarios, they there's people who consuming drugs and alcohol and start abusing other people. Let's say if I'm going in the streets and I see such a scenario, what do you suggest should I do? Should I just report it, or?
Well, first of all, they shouldn't try and reason or encourage the engagement or the confrontation, because again, the person who's under that influence,
Right.
all right, you're not going to be able to reason very well with them in the first place. So you need to think of your own safety immediately and back yourself away. All right. Don't become another part of the problem. All right. Obviously, if you're in a situation where your own safety's an immediate threat or anything like that, then you should be straight onto the phone, calling for assistance with 111, obviously, or if you're, say, for example, at a party and you're at a confrontation that's getting and that sort of stuff, it's having those alternative action plans already decided. You've already made decisions where you're sort of like saying to yourself, right, what am I doing tonight? Where can I go? Who can I contact? Who's got availability to me, and that sort of thing. So making sure you've got a safety plan in that respect. So, but the main thing would be, don't try and reason, don't try and de-escalate it, because you probably can't reason with them. You should be looking at a plan of getting yourself out and away from the area.
Right.
All right.
Yes. So your safety first before.
Don't worry about them. Worry about yourself.
Right. Okay.
Once you're in a safe area or a safe place, by all means, if you think that the person themselves needs assistance, the person themselves might need help from, say, for example, the police, then ring and say, you've got this situation. This is where it is. This is what the person's doing, etc. So no worries about that at all. Because again, the person under the influence of the drug or the alcohol might actually not know what they're doing in that, and they themselves might need help. So they're not always aggressive, but even if they are aggressive, it doesn't mean that they're not actually able to be helped by the agencies.
Yeah.
All right?
Awesome. So that was very good explanations. What about those? There's a lot of other scenarios if they get abused in home by their family members or all of these.
And there are many families that have alcohol and drug issues within the home, and it's a very difficult position for them to be in. They have so many influences about family shame, about how it affects or how it might look and that sort of stuff. But again, there are many support groups available that they can contact anonymously, that they can contact by a number of means, whether it be through phones or emails or through third parties, just talking to a friend and asking them. There is a number of avenues available. I think though they need to be aware that the problem's not going to just fix itself. They need experts. They need help.
Yeah.
It won't be able to be fixed in-house, and it's probably only either going to get worse or it could seriously hurt someone. And so they should do it sooner than later whenever they think that there's that problem. And the first thing would be to start talking to someone. And if they feel like they can't talk to, I suppose, immediate friends and that, there are those special groups, there's special counsellors available on the phone anytime, 24/7.
Okay, cool. So do the police intervene when someone make a call that
No.
there's a... When do they intervene in such
Police
issues?
only become involved when there is a risk, an immediate risk to someone's safety, and it's necessary. Otherwise, the police don't have to become involved at all. You've got Salvation Army, you've got the drug and alcohol group, you've got Te Aroha, the health.
Yeah.
You've got those counsellors and those special people and that. So you don't have to be scared that, the police are going to come in and the police are going to arrest, the police are going to take away. That's not going to happen. The police will only become involved really when we need to ensure someone's safety. All right?
Right.
Otherwise, you don't have to worry about if I ring it. Say, for example, if you think that they're taking drugs and that, the police are going to kick the door down and they're going to come bursting in here and they're going to lock everyone up. That's not going to happen. All right? That's just not going to happen.
Right. But it's important that community to know that if there is such a things to report, like if it's safety concerns or if it's issue concerns.
If they believe that there is a risk to
harm.
community, to any person, if there's a risk of harm, then by all means they should be calling the police for assistance or for even for some advice.
Yeah.
All right, doesn't have to mean that they're going to respond straight away. We might be able to deal with it over the phone, so that's fine. All right, so definitely, like say for example, if you saw someone who looks like they're intoxicated and they're going to get into a car and drive, you'd want to stop that from happening.
Yeah.
So you could call the police, report the number, the registration number, and that sort of stuff. You know, if you see a person who's obviously under the influence of some form of drug and that sort of stuff, and they're not able to capable of being able to look after themselves. They don't necessarily have to be in a fight, but they just look really bad, sad, whatever. Ring the police, we'll come make sure they're okay. But if you've got something else, for example, like you think, your son's taking drugs or dad's drinking too much, you can make a quiet phone call and get some advice from a counsellor, and the police don't have to become involved in that. And I think that's important, because I don't want people to feel as though,
Yeah. Because how big will be? Because also police are under-resourced, if I put it. Are they able to respond to too many issues at the same time?
Everything that's rung in is prioritised.
Okay.
So it's I suppose it's determined as to, does it need immediate response? Can we just take this up and follow it up at a later date? For example, with my group, we get a lot of information across our desk that's happened over the weekend, and we don't get it until the Monday, and then we'll go through it, we'll see what the reports are, we'll see what people have rung in and reported and that sort of stuff, and see, well, can we help? Can we refer that to another organisation? So sometimes it's immediate and sometimes it's not.
Yeah. So while on the question of support, there is a large number of our people who watch and listen to our podcast from our community, refugee migrant communities. So here we're talking about the cultures is there any specific supports for those cultures when it's come to those kind of issues, if they've been dealing with drugs or alcohol?
There are specialised groups who are totally aware of individual cultures and know how to respond to that. The same with, I suppose, language barriers.
Yeah.
They right across the board have interpreters available, basically 24/7, available to discuss and to help those things. So there shouldn't be any barriers, so to speak, or any reasons for slow response in regards to there being either a language or a misunderstanding or an understanding of a cultural difference. All right. And again, understanding that alcohol and drugs don't target a specific group of people or cultures.
Right. Anyone.
We're all human.
Yeah, yeah.
Our body all reacts the same way. There's no difference there. And so the same concerns, risks and harm are there across the board for everyone.
That's right, that's correct. But then I get also some questions, what about the privacy? If someone is really, let's say, who want to really get help, and if they approach police first, how you deal with the privacy of those kind of issues when there's cases of drugs or alcohol?
The paramount response first would be to ensure that that person gets what they need. That's the ultimate game, isn't it? Really. Yeah. So privacy irrelevant of whether you're the person who's admitting you're taking drugs or you're under the influence of something and you need help. Obviously, from a police perspective, in that if we can help you and make you better or put you on the right track, that's better than just putting you in the cell. Mm. So we want to do that. That's the priority. Prevention is the priority for us, yeah. Right? Not the response. So that would be giving you, I suppose, the assistance to the right organisations or the right help to get you on the right road.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just looking at the time. I'm just going really great. We have 3 minutes for last the questions.
Do we need it?
Yeah.
So I don't know if any of this is going to be used anyway.
Yeah. So you tapped on a really cool areas about what is it and what is the distinction between drugs and alcohol as two issues. Then we talked about support available. We talked about a little bit of different scenarios when people can support it and what they expect as a support. Sometimes maybe not police, like you say, maybe the other agencies could be that right support for them at the time. But I want to say, like, what kind of initiative you guys have used the police to reduce like those harms of alcohol and drugs? You talked about education was something good to use, but any other initiative you think you guys have used before?
So we do a lot of engagement with the community and getting that information out. So whether they be small community groups, even like this, where we can try and take that opportunity to just sort of like put it out there, to have people thinking about it and understanding the serious risks that are associated with drugs and alcohol. We also work with closely with health and councils in regards to the monitoring and the compliance of the sale and supply, and specifically with alcohol. We have our obviously our projects, you might call them, about trying to minimise the availability of both alcohol, but more along the lines of illicit drugs, looking at ways of stopping or at least slowing down the supply of that sort of thing. Yeah. What else?
Yeah, no, that's just really awesome. So just the last one, I think to finish, which is will come. What will be your advice? But before I ask you an advice, if someone have admitted like they are using drugs and stuff, will they get arrested?
No.
Because that is very common in a community, they think. That's why they hide until they get addicted.
The difference is are they discovered taking it, or are they coming forward with an addiction or a problem that they want addressed themselves? There's a difference between that. I mean, if I come up to you and say, I can smell cannabis, so you're taking cannabis, and you go, yes, well, you might end up being arrested because that's not you coming forth.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you come and you give a phone call, for example, and just saying, look, I've got some addiction problems and that sort of stuff, I don't know what to do or where to go, then we're not going to say, well, who are you, where are you, and we'll come and pick you up and put you in the cells for the night. Our response to that would be, look, go here, see this person, let us know if we can help you more and that sort of stuff. So there's a difference between the two there.
I see. Yeah.
So
Cool.
it's the same with alcohol. You know, if you're in the central city area where there's a liquor ban,
Yeah.
and you see a police officer and you're drinking alcohol and you decide to wander on up to them and go, hey, how are you? I'm drinking alcohol. You might get a fine. All right.
And on that one, there's a lot of area is not allowed publicly to grab your beer and drink anywhere, right?
So there
streets.
are areas where liquor, alcohol is banned from drinking in public.
Okay.
And there are other areas where you can drink
I see.
alcohol in public. Of course, only if you're over the age of 18.
Yeah, definitely.
Right?
Yeah.
So we're not saying anyone can drink anywhere, but it goes to say that, for example, in fact, I don't know any cities, but all towns and cities will have a liquor ban area,
Right.
which means you don't go walking around the streets drinking alcohol. You can do that further out in certain areas, parks and that sort of stuff. It may be available, but there's usually signage around that tells you when and where you can and can't. So
Right. There's a map there. I think we will try post the map.
Yep. Yeah. Have a look at the map. If you're in Wellington, have a look at the map. If you're elsewhere, wherever your town is or wherever your city is, know where that area is and make sure you don't. And that includes drinking alcohol in a car, all right, or in a taxi in that area. So don't just think you've got to be walking in that area. If you're in a car driving through that area, you're also breaking the rules.
If you are a stopped car and just park there,
You're still breaking the rules. So,
you guys, you can see.
Yeah. So don't go parking in someone's car park or some business's car park thinking I'm okay to drink in the car, but I'm not when I get out of the car. You're not allowed to drink in that entire area.
All right. Okay. That's cool.
Yeah, otherwise, you're going to get a fine.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's a big one too.
Oh la la! How much?
$250.
Oh, that's a salary of a week.
Yep, just for drinking a bottle of beer or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So think wisely, I think, for the people listening here. And 250, you can really make a party.
you could certainly have more fun, couldn't you, without spending that? Yeah.
Harming yourself and the other people. So Shane, I'm aware about the time, and I really thank you. But the last question will be, what would be your advice to the people, the young people, other people who are listening and watching this in general? What would be your advice for them?
If you're over the age of 18, you should consume alcohol responsibly. Know your limit, basically. Don't take drugs, any illicit drugs at all. Don't experiment. It's not worth the harm or the risk. It's just not worth it.
That's it. And by that note, we will end it up here. Thank you, Shane.
Thank you.